Welcome to week 7. I hope you're having a great summer where you are. That the temperature is not too hot, not too cold, that the winds are warm and soothing for you. This week we're going to be focusing on two important non-governmental institutions, interest groups and political parties, both exceptionally important in American politics. Let me focus first for a minute or two on interest groups. Interest groups are constitutionally protected. They are a vital source of influence in American politics. So even if we think about the First Amendment to the Constitution, the guarantees for freedom of speech, the rights to or the freedom to assemble, and then the right to petition the government. So speaking freely, assembling with those of like minds, and then being able to ask the government to adopt policies they prefer. That's the core of interest groups, the core constitutional protections for them. And Americans have always been a nation of joiners. We tend, many of us, to be members of various social institutions, members of churches, members of community groups, but especially groups involved in influencing politics, interest groups, which can represent private interests, like interest groups that represent a corporation or a trade union, or public interest groups that don't represent specific economic interests, but seek the broader public interest. For example, those groups that advocate for environmental policy or gun rights and so forth. So we have thousands and thousands of interest groups, constitutionally protected. Millions of Americans belong to them. And they are especially important in politics because of the constitutional structure of government. We have both a federal system, you'll recall, and also a separation of power system, legislative, executive, and judicial branches at both national and state levels of government. So interest groups then have many, many venues that they can use to seek policy change. So interest groups can work at the state level, they can work at the national level. They can focus on persuading legislatures to adopt their policies or seeking their policies through executive action of the president or governors. Or they can work through the courts by litigating, suing to get what they want. The final reason that interest groups are so important in the United States now is that the government is just so vast in size and scope. We spend trillions of dollars through the federal and state budgets. Governments are involved in every possible economic and social activity you can really think of. So because of the size and the scope of the government, there are interests that want to shape what the government does in social policy, economic policy, and so forth across this wide range. And because there's so much money at stake in terms of state and federal spending, interest groups have very strong incentives to try to shape where that money goes and to influence how it can be spent. So interest groups, vastly important. We'll be focusing on them. Political parties have somewhat different role in the United States. They're not as strong as, for example, many European parties traditionally have been. Our parties are collections of individuals with a common interest, the common interest in running for office, winning elections, gaining power, and guiding the government. But the parties, for example, citizens, you may consider yourself a Democrat or a Republican. Chances are that you don't attend any Republican or Democratic meetings or any other party meetings. You don't pay dues and so forth. So within the citizenry, what's called party identification really is how we think of ourselves, how we affiliate ourselves. And that is the party in the electorate. There are two other realms that political parties operate in, or we can think of them operating in. The party in the electorate, what people believe. The party in government. And the party in government is constituted of those politicians who run for office and win. So we look at the House or the Senate or the White House. Everyone in those offices, almost everyone, is a Republican or a Democrat. They affiliate with those parties. They bring a party coalition together to try to gain power to run the government. So in 2018, the Republicans control the House and the Senate and the presidency. So that party, the Republican Party, has its ability to guide the government as the majority party in ways that the Democratic Party is not. So a key goal of the party in government the elected politicians is to try to obtain a majority and maintain a majority or win the White House so that they can govern. Final realm for party activity in the United States is called the party organizations. So, not the voters, not the public, not politicians. The party organization are those paid professionals, by and large paid professionals, that work for the Republican or the Democratic national committees. So, both parties have offices in Washington and across the states. They hire people in those offices to promote the party platform, to try to mobilize voters to vote for the politicians, to recruit politicians to run in those elections. And then the party organizations also provide candidates then strategic advice. So polling, developing commercials, message development, other skills necessary for running successful campaigns and then governing. So we have strong parties, but not quite strong in the same way that they really control governmental action much more in other countries than in the United States. So interest groups, political parties, fascinating political institutions, non-governmental. I hope you enjoy learning about them this week and that the lessons that you obtain from them give you a keener and more nuanced understanding of American politics.